done. And Avenue being such a prominent location, it does impact multiple communities. So while it sits in the neighborhood of 10 Hills, and we know that 10 Hills is here with us this evening, we have also invited South Rock Glen, Beachfield, and other communities that surround the neighborhood. The timeline for this process is currently today, we're doing our community presentation. The community presentation is extremely important to the review process. We will have an online survey, which will remain online for 10 days. So 2 weeks from today, we will close it, but we want to get as much feedback from the neighborhood as we can. Criticism, questions, comments, compliments, all of that is information that we give to the evaluation panel so that when they meet with the group, they can also take that information and get more detail if necessary and or share those compliments with the applicant. Following tonight's presentation, there will be a developer interview with the evaluation panel. The panel is made up of experts around the state that deal with urban agriculture, community planning, neighborhood development, and urban agriculture specifically in the region of Baltimore. Following that step in the process, we are hopeful to have a recommendation to go to the Director of Planning, Mr. Chris Ryer, and the Commissioner of Housing, Ms. Alice Kennedy, so that June of 2023, we can have a recommendation for this site. And that is the hope for the timeline of the event. Part of the RFP included requesting a letter of interest, the project description, budget and financing, the farmer capacity, community and economic inclusion, minority and business enterprise participation, and community. All of these submission requirements are weighted and are included in the review process, both for the community as well as for the city and the supporting departments that are going to participate in the review process. The weight of these, and I wish I could show this to you, quality of development concept has a weight of 30 points. Project feasibility is 20 points. Farmer capacity and experience is 20 points. And the following is the community points. So it's benefits to the city, benefits to the community, and economic and community inclusion for a total of 30 points. That's why we really hope to hear from the community. You will have an opportunity this evening to meet our applicant, ask some questions and have a dialogue, and then follow up with the survey, which we will make certain if we have your email, we can get that to you, but it will be public on our website. It actually is up today. So the site that we are referencing is currently zoned R5, which does allow for urban agriculture. The lot size currently is a little shy of 5 acres. It is located in the community of 10 Hills. The description that we have for the site reads as follows. The property has a number of trees that would fall under the Forest Conservation Act. There is also a number of large dead trees that would need to be removed. The boundary along Frederick Avenue is at times in the floodplain. The lowest elevation is 198 feet along Frederick Avenue with the on the south boundary, and 240 feet on the northern boundary. The area with the most direct sunlight is at the southern edge of this parcel. Very, very excited as a home gardener. When I hear about green space, it's really exciting to hear about that. And I know that this is something that the community has shared via our neighborhood development officer and our community planner, the desire to have green space in that location. Tonight, we have our respondent who met threshold, Wild Acres LLC. And I'm going to turn this over for the presentation, and following presentation, we'll have an opportunity for a question and answer session. To Mr. Martinez.
Yeah, thank you. There you go there.
Is the presentation on your computer?
I don't, because it's not showing, I don't need it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good. So my name's Gerardo Martinez. Our farm is actually called Wild Acres LLC. It's a little confusing because we're also naming another project Wild Acres. But I kind of want to do an introduction of who I am and what my farm is down south where we live, and kind of why we saw this property as such a great opportunity. So like I said, my name is Gerardo. I'm here with my wife, Jessica. My wife, Jessica, is a graduate of UMBC. When I met her, she was living on Wickham Avenue. So we know the area pretty well, but now she's an attorney and kind of a bigwig, and bigger deal than me. I'm originally from the inner city of Chicago. I went to the Naval Academy, graduated there, was a Marine Corps officer. Did a whole stint in the corporate world, hated it because it's not fun. And then I started my own leadership company. That leadership company took me to Africa, and we stayed in Cameroon, and I brought my lovely wife with me, kind of pressured her into it, and we stayed on a farm in the middle of the jungle. That farm in the jungle was the community center. There was a church, the school, the dance parties, the education, everything that happened within that community where they say the village takes care of all the kids, that all happened on that farm. We were so moved by the culture in Africa that when we came back, we were living in Bethesda at the time, we were like, this is not us anymore. We cannot live in this condo. So we decided to buy a farm, and we're not millionaires, so we had to find an affordable property. We found this place in Edgewater. It was an unofficial dump. There was garbage everywhere. It was in the floodplain significantly. Every time it rained, it got over a foot in the entire property. There was dead animals on the porch. There's garbage everywhere. And we said, yes, we can afford this. So we did a proposal, or we did like a submission for very significantly less, and they accepted it. And we got it to work. So we were like, what we'll do is we'll slowly rebuild this place, and then we'll live in the house once we can renovate it. COVID hit, and that changed everything. So we now had to live on the property that was a dump because we couldn't afford to live anywhere else. We had to rent out our previous home. So we lived in a tent and in a trailer for a year while we rebuilt the house by ourselves over COVID, while also cleaning the property up. Because there was so much trash, we got really knee deep into the regenerative agriculture movement, which is trying to work with the ecosystem, trying to work with the natural landscape of the land, and trying to improve it through soil health. So needless to say, like, we started taking out dumpsters and replacing it with wood chips and using our animals to the best of their ability, not only for production, but also to regenerate the land. The road in front of us used to flood like crazy. I actually have community members here that can attest that that road no longer floods because we put so much organic matter in replace of trash that it actually mitigated the flooding. Now, as COVID went on, the demand to be into open space was huge. And we were very much against that because in Maryland, you can get sued for anything. So we decided not to open, and then a lady pulled in and said, can I please pet your goat? And she convinced me to open up because she was just so depressed over COVID with all the stuff that was going on in COVID and Trump and all that stuff, all that craziness that was going on. So she came in, she convinced me to open, and we opened up. And that's kind of like, that's what started us down the path that we are now. So now we have a philosophy just like we were in Africa. that the farm should be the center of the community, not just part of it, not just on the outside that can give you food, but it should be the center of the community, just like it was in Africa. Over 2021, we opened up for therapy. We opened up for crazy stuff like yoga. We did education, a significant amount of farmer education, and a lot of like just partnering with businesses to find alternative ways to get people outside and inspire them through the use of the farm. Because of that, over 2021, we were only open for 80 days because we were also building and it was a dump. We saw 6,000 kids through our farm. And that was all just like me and my wife, mainly me trying not to get killed by my wife, but it was me and my wife educating and like just having the community involved. And through that, we decided, you know what, we can actually change the whole agricultural system so that we're not using distribution, destroying the planet more. And also, we saw a significant lack of food within mainly minority communities in Anne Arundel County. So we started fundraising for a barn. We eventually got the money to build this barn where we have a market, we have a classroom, we have an education stall system. It's getting built right now and we're super excited about it. And our model is really just focusing on becoming that center of the community, like I said. So now we're at this point where that farm is already like doing really well, producing a lot of livestock. We purchased another farm in light of that because we thought we weren't going to get the money for the barn. We purchased another farm in Waldorf, right on the outskirts of the city. So technically deemed an urban farm as well, but it's a little bit more rural down there. And that's a certified organic produce farm where we produce enough food that we can feed ourselves, sell to the local community, and we donate more than half of what we produce to the local food bank. And that's certified organic fresh food. The only problem is that the food bank has to get it out the very next day because it's that fresh, since we don't use chemicals or any type of fertilizers or pesticides and all that stuff. So now we're at this point where like, we have the farm getting like really kind of focused on leading the community in Anne Arundel County. We're producing in Waldorf County, in Waldorf City. And now we're at the point where we saw this opportunity in Baltimore City and we could get back to our roots. We're both city kids at heart, especially my wife, because she's from here. We saw this opportunity to like, kind of like improve our impact through the youth that really wanted to get to us. We've had a lot of kids come from Baltimore City to our farm. And the number one problem to get to our farm is transportation. They were allowed to see a farmer that looked different from like an old white guy on a tractor. They were allowed to see a farm that was so open armed that they could go and hug a cow or they could go and plant the plants that they wanted to eat. But they couldn't get there. So when we saw this RFP, it was an immediate thing that like, let's go impact this community. We brought some teachers along. We've already been to Baltimore City a lot. We do a lot of mobile education where we bring animals and plants in our trailer and we'll come up to schools. We've been to Digital Harbor quite a few times now for their schools in biology system, but we're really focusing on trying to do that same thing where we become the center of the community. And I know there's a lot of like context around farms being smelly. They're very disruptive, they're loud, the farmers are angry, but that is not how we farm. If you come to my farm in Edgewater, it's got more animals than technically you think you could have on 5 acres, but it doesn't smell at all because we use so many natural methods that the animals are well fed, the plants are growing more aggressive than anywhere else, and it doesn't stink. So I know there's probably gonna be a lot of questions about the methods of the way we do that, especially with the flooding and all that, just because of the area, but I'm more than happy to answer that. So in this proposal, our end of the proposal is we are just focusing on trying to get this farm into production. So we have all the assets to get it into actual production and sell locally only. That is a very big deal for us. We do not want to put any of this food on a diesel truck. Another aspect of this is we need to do some serious inspiration into the next generation of farmers. So I sit as the Agricultural Transition Chairman for Westmore. I'm also on the Food Authority Board for Westmore and the Tourism Board for Westmore. Needless to say, like the ag community is very old and Wes sees that I'm not old. So the average age of a farmer in Maryland is 70. So in 10 years, you can expect a significant food shortage. And everybody's freaking out all over the world, but I'm not. Because I see the kids in Baltimore, I see the kids in DC, and I see the kids in Anne Arundel County that want to become farmers. They just. So that's kind of like our ultimate goal, is to inspire that next generation. So that in that, we are partnering with another nonprofit that is a housing developer. It's within our proposal. They're kind of taking a chunk of the northern part of the land up the hill to do some housing, but the only part that we're really taking part in that is we are requiring any of those residents to go through our beginning farmer training. So they will get the affordable housing, but they have to go through our training. I'm gonna let Alex here talk about the housing. I'm all the farm, so like I do everything farm, not the developer. He'll talk more about that. We're just requiring them to go through farmer training. I will say that I know, like the presentation, I don't know if you saw it yet or not, or the people online, there's a lot of pictures of big animals like cows and horses and stuff. Not allowed by the city, so we can't like bring those in. But we do some production and education on smaller livestock as well. And they don't smell, they don't bite, they don't do that stuff. They are delicious. But so if you have any questions about the farming aspect, I'd love to answer some, or what do you want to do? Do you want
Yeah,
to?
you have a question online. And by the way, anybody online, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Okay,
The person typed in, can you please state how large your farms in Edgewater and Wardell are?
so Waldorf is the exact same size as this area right over here. So Waldorf is actually a little, or not Waldorf, Edgewater is 4.45 acres. So it's just around the same size. Waldorf is 25 acres, and that's only for production. So that's kind of like where we do our graduate level training, where like the kids will get inspired and they're like, I actually want to be on a tractor. I want to see what it's like to produce thousands of pounds. That's 25 acres of certified organic produce right on the outskirts of Waldorf. And that we came into through a loan through the USDA. So that's actually like our biggest scare. Yeah, I know.
What kind of animals would be on the farm?
On the farm up here would only be small livestock if we were allowed. So chickens, the largest thing we would ever have would be a goat.
What is their estimate?
So chickens are,
No?
yeah, that'd probably be the largest livestock.
The mini, the small weed.
Yeah, we don't. Little ones, but we've had a pretty large demand from the African community and the Caribbean community for goat production. So that's something that we really are conscious of.
You can say-
Not only that, but they also have a significant impact on the flooding capabilities. So their favorite foods are every invasive that is in Maryland. So poison ivy, the briars, kudzu, all that stuff, that's goat's favorite food. So instead of us bringing in plows and stuff, we use goats or pigs, but here is all a matter of what the city will allow.
Just, I wanted to, if we could, this is a portion of the application, so
Yeah.
I do want to be able to have the other presenter share, and then we can do the poll questions from both of them at the same time. So if you'd like to.
I'll let you go, Alex, and I'll stay as late as anybody
Yes,
wants for
please
questions.
do.
Thank you for that.
Can I just one question before you?
Sure.
Farm, does it include buildings?
So what we would be primarily focused on are agricultural buildings only. So, do you know what a high tunnel is? It's like a greenhouse, but not as, rigid. So it's like metal tubing that you can move if you wanted to, but they're tall enough to get like a small tractor or even people through. More normal greenhouses within the terms of farming for production are like this tall, so you can't walk through that. But a high tunnel is anything above 6 feet. So we would use a significant amount of those because of the flooding issues and because of the sunlight with the trees. It also, high tunnels, they prolong your ability to grow as well as let you start growing earlier because they trap the heat. The only other building that we would have is that we would eventually like to potentially put on the same type of smaller market. Our building down in Edgewater is 5,000 square feet. That's really big. So the only thing that we would have here is some way to wash and do the food safe production and packaging. So that would be like a smaller barn for storage and most importantly, like getting the food safe ready.
You have any photos?
I do, it is in the presentation, which you can get, if you guys go on Wildcat Acres, the Instagram or the Facebook or our website, you'll see all those photos. Wild Kid Acres, yeah,
Also, I believe it's free now also, but it's, I mean, it's in those homes, but it's in free now.
The map for the department planning identifies the full site in Tim. However, it borders Tremont and, South Rockland. So,
Technically, it's the Tin Hills ambulance area. Associated with in those community claims.
This lot starts off in South Rockland.
Yes.
My village, right, the back, right behind you now.
Many flood mitigation meetings over the years, and they're working very hard on flood mitigation. Prevent the flooding that this area always gets.
Yep.
Last few years. And we were told by the engineers that under those circumstances, if anything, be built on that.
And nothing can last, nothing is last.
My question, if you're R5 residential, you're gonna be selling, I don't believe that's permitted, is it? Can't be selling on an R5 lot.
yeah, that would be up to the city planners or anything like that. We can opt out.
When the city zoning code was updated, I guess maybe 5 years ago. is that right? There was a new use permit category created for urban agriculture because people had urban farms everywhere, but there was no way to legitimate that use. And it's a conditional use, so you have to go before the zoning board and have a hearing and, you know, talk about if there are any conditions that should be on it, like in terms of what hours you operate or being set back and whatnot, but it does, that category does allow you to have an on-site farm stand or they can grow on the stick.
My understanding really is the buildings. that
The selling,
Yeah,
the selling.
yeah, and we've dealt with that issue in Anne Arundel County. So our property in Anne Arundel County is on the base of the Rogue River, which is the low lying river to the bay. And they said this, engineer said the same thing with the house that I purchased, even though the foundation was there, it's like, it's condemned, it will never do it. But because we put so much organic matter into the soil and make it more healthy, so we use a lot of wood chips and stuff like that. It actually breaks down into compost and then breaks down into topsoil. The average inch of organic matter over an acre holds 22,000 gallons, which then turns into root systems, which then fixes the flooding issues. All the regenerative agricultural research right now is held by NASA, the Smithsonian, and the USDA for the fixing of flooding. Most of the water runoff around is used through tillage, is caused by tillage and disruption, just like building, right? Which we call impervious. But we have the ability to mitigate that through the induction of organic matter. All that research is right on the cusp of getting released. But yeah, I totally understand your concern. And we also were told, you can't build a barn on this farm. And then the flooding got mitigated. And they're like, wow, your soil is strong enough to hold a 5,000 square foot barn, just like we built.
So what do you have to? Right. Yeah, so much housing in this area.
I'm gonna let him go into that. I can kind of explain after he goes why we chose to partner with the housing development. Oh, thank you.
Let me go through quickly the housing aspect of it, then we can get more questions.
Problem is, we have a rule. Not the only person in this room has lived this a whole life. We lived at 301 South Main Street when the school was in the 40s. After they go, my parents lived, after they go to school, the school was flooded out. So the city of Baltimore bought 5 houses on the beach field to get the runoff that helped the school. It didn't help Frederick Road, Frederick Avenue. I'm in 5010 Frederick Avenue, and it wasn't part of my business out. You guys cannot comprehend how much water comes down. It's not in bad Sullivan City. But everybody in the 4900 block and 4700 block of Frederick Avenue, basements are flooded, those apartments were flooded. And they have everything done, they built that nice fancy wall up there in the 5300 block of Frederick Avenue for runoff. Trust me, that water is 5 to 8 feet deep if you can comprehend from the cemetery down.
It touched the bottom of the stop sign.
Right. Now, until we fix the water problem. Make questions, there's no runoff space. So where that field is, where that field, when he's on the that's not where the water comes, it comes from the water bed. When I say 5 feet, I'm not exaggerating 5 feet.
People have died.
Stuff like this letter says, about urban agriculture, I didn't see anything about housing.
In order to complement
Wait, let
the,
me finish. Pretty much what the house is. The problem that it's like, nursing home. I can look at it, I know that people, well, yeah, the old guy sanitary, that's fine for them to, we still need a place for water. Okay, and that nice fancy wall they put up there in 54 block. The water's above that.
yeah, so
Because
this-
if I-
Stop. There's no place for water. Because of the building.
That wall hasn't been tested yet.
Right, it's 100% correct. It has to rain bad enough for that wall to be tested.
So we don't know.
It's going to get worse.
And,
People have died there.
exactly
Before,
right.
if we could, just so that we could get through the process of them.
I understand that, but
But no, your points are extremely valid and something that the city has also been discussing. But I do want to give the respondents an opportunity to share, and then those questions and comments and details to be able to pose those to them after they present.
I'm
So if we
totally
can just do that.
understanding, Mark. But why waste our time? They haven't fixed the water. Yeah, so if you build, if, now that lady, those two women there, their basements are flooded 80 times since 1950. Okay, now we have lived there.
can I just make it, before we do any type of development, we will undergo a complete study, which is groundwater on the site, topography, all that has to be studied. Based on that, we will design the housing as well as the farm. So before we do any site work, all that study will be done. And once we do that, we'll convey that information to you. And how to also protect that.
Okay. Now, the city has been running for 200 years.
Exactly.
54 people died grounded in another city in 200 years. And they've done everything. They just spent $30 million. The closest restaurant down at the end.
I really want to allow them an
Go
opportunity.
ahead, I'm just telling
I understand, and we have that documentation. We're bringing this to the community for that feedback. But in respect of their response, I would like them to have an opportunity to share their full proposal with the community. And that's where we are. So as soon as he's complete, we can have an opportunity for dialogue and question. And we are aware of some of the issues you've mentioned, but tonight's presentation is to allow the applicant an opportunity to share with the community. And then from that point, the community's feedback is extremely important to our next step in the process.
Thank you. In order, yeah, no worries. Your points are very valid. To complement the urban farming, our proposal is to develop half an acre of affordable housing to the north of the site, to build 40 affordable housing, which will be sold an affordable housing for homeownership. But about our background is we are a developer, initially wise, a nonprofit. All our team, the contractors, will design it on NMB. We've been working in the Baltimore area for the last 10 years. Okay. So we've been developing in the Baltimore area for the last 10 years. We've done development in the east and west, and we developed affordable housing on the Henneman and Prentice project. Our proposal is to develop 14 homes on the northern side of the project.
The same 5 acres that we're talking about.
So the 5 acre, majority of the project will be for the farming. The top north corner, a half acre of this site will be developed for affordable housing.
Up by the ridge.
Yeah, so there's a ridge up there. And it's closer to the country mill. Right, that's where it would be. Yeah, but not
Why is there a need, I mean, connection that you said you're doing this for the farming? How does this connect?
So
So you're gonna put all these houses and then you're aware that they're building that homeless community and they're putting a whole lot of affordable housing. Very like a hop, skip and a jump from there, right at that top of that hill, you go down Penn Lucy and go to the left, and go all the way to Parkway, you got a whole ton of affordable housing. Some affordable housing.
like he stated, in order to be qualified, they will offer training for young beginners farmers. And also to increase the tax base for the city. The city is in dire for affordable housing. Home ownership, not rental, but home ownership.
So it would be expected that these homeowners would buy into knowing that they're purchasing a home where they're expected to work on the farm. Is that?
They're only expected to go through trainers.
Only training.
Yeah, they will have, in the design of their farm or their housing, each one will have their own growing space. And in full transparency, right, a farm costs a lot of money. It'll cost me close to $1 million just to get the whole thing into production. Hopefully through the help of USDA and all that stuff, I can do that, right? I have equipment already. I can't offer the city any money to start a farm here. Nobody can. Farmer Chippy up in Park Heights struggles and gets grants to farm here. So our idea was the way that we can kind of help the city along is we'll also train the next generation of farmers through the use of farming and housing. And then the housing tax base will.
The housing tax base will help to offset the cost, would it get the farm going?
For the city, yeah. So, like I said, to start a farm, especially a regenerative farm, there's a significant amount of community partnership, not just with the community, but there's also got to be partnership with those who create ways. So,
I'm done.
yeah, so we just, I can start a farm on the whole property. That's very simple. It's just, I don't have anything to offer the city other than a farm.
May I suggest that we let the gentleman make their presentation, and then we can answer questions.
So I'm done in terms of the general, and the more information will be on the slide.
So what else? Just a half acre.
Half an acre will consist 14 affordable housing.
That's so your vision for the homes though, are they like 3-bedroom homes, 2-bedrooms, condo style? What?
It's a townhome, townhome. In each townhome, they will have their own private garden as well.
They also have a private one.
Correct.
Now, just a couple questions if I can ask, Mr. Martinez from.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, you said this is 5 acres here, but your farm in Edgewater
Is just under.
is about 5. In Waldorf, 25.
Yes.
Are they more rural than residential? Are they more rural properties? Maybe. Community of homeowners and persons living in the community close to your
So
farm.
this is one of the community members. We are right next to, we are deemed an urban farm in Edgewater. The Waldorf community, the Waldorf farm is 2 minutes away from downtown Waldorf. Waldorf is a very different type of city. It's very rural and like just like inherently in how it's designed. There's like 100,000 people in the city of Waldorf, but only 160,000 in the outskirts of Waldorf. So it's like a very dense but then rural immediately.
So.
I'll let her, she lives down the street from me.
Surrounding communities that are on the full Miltree. I teach at Digital Harbor High School. I've been a Baltimore City teacher for 26 years. And I drove past, before I met Gerardo and Jessica, I drove past the house where it was, when it was condemned, all the things, drove through the flooding, like literally every day. And then was kind of amused, no offense, to see people rebuilding this property. I was like, this is never, literally just what came out of something last year. This is never gonna work because this whole property floods literally in this spot. We're on a peninsula. We're actually on Mayo Peninsula. So if you're familiar with Federal Trenton Beach or Mayo Beach Park, etc. There's eight or so community associations. I'm the secretary on the Southwest Point Community Association. Anyway, so I would watch them, build and kind of look for some of the things to recycle and wish that I could just come on their property and say, can I borrow that for my own garden? Anyway, long story short, people that never thought it would work can drive onto the peninsula in an area that literally could get, like you said, I'm not saying 8 feet, not to the stop sign, but like you were afraid that your car was going to drown out. The water was so deep. People, like, if you didn't get onto the peninsula quick enough, like you weren't going home that night. It doesn't flood in the area. Like and it's getting even better the more the farm has been built up. And I understand lots of the skepticism because our community association on the peninsula like had similar things, but then the more people were like, hey, they're right. I haven't had to like stop my car and wait for the water to go away. And that. I mean, nothing is perfect, right? The more the community has become involved, the more things, where it's like it's a site, site for a lot of cool things. At some point during COVID, we came back to teaching in person with masks. We were gonna hold, this is kind of how my connection with Gerardo and Jessica happened, mind and tell that story, if that's okay, or.
We actually do have a limited amount of time,
Yeah.
but I do appreciate you sharing it from the community perspective. Do you have any closing comments that you'd like to make? Because I would like to put it out to the community for the final question.
Yeah,
Are you?
Can I speak?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm at 201 South Road. My property backs up to the property you got to talk about. I didn't build a house like 45 years ago. I don't want a farm there. Okay, I don't want chickens, goats. I don't care what. My house is right there. Anybody who's welcome, come to my door, knock on my door, ring my doorbell. No, the only way I found out about this, including the city people, is from a neighbor who brought a form off to me. My information is all through the whole city. If you go online and say, hey, what's the South Rockland Community Association? My telephone number, my email address, everything is there. I don't know anything about it. This says urban development. I can't even see urban development. I come to see building houses. So, and are you going to send me, you're going to send me a presentation? Probably not, because you're going to send me the information on the next one meeting. I mean, come on, guys, let's get it together. I do not want you for contact.
Everybody's contact, neighborhood associations here, so not sure what happened.
Okay, well, I was not contacted. What, Tuesday? Tuesday,
But I don't like this, to be very honest, I'm the president of the Tree Neighborhood Association. It's time. I understand your intentions are good, but I really don't like this. I really don't. And, I've been newly elected president. In fact, my community respects me to an extent. And that if I go down sign this, show them what you're proposing, guess what they're gonna agree? It's just the respect I know that they have for me and those in our community. But I don't like this proposal.
Can you explain why?
The reason why I do not like this, is I think we're not being told everything. I think that the greenery, first of all, never is. If you're thinking about building homes on that property, you're not gonna, nobody's gonna wake up and dump trucks and drilling in noise. It's the residents on Wickham Road that's gonna be disturbed by the disturbance. And Rockland Road, I think that's a bit much. Okay, the whole concept of urban, I love greenery. I love to see the fox and the fox in the deer going through the path of the green. I love to see that. One of the things that's happening in our city, unfortunately, we're destroying the greenery. Laura gets out, go walking on here on her lawn, on her front porch eating her flowers. My neighbor, the same thing. You're not being affected by that. We are. The city doesn't give a damn.
I disagree with that.
I know the difference.
The city is here and offering this
I'm just
opportunity.
sitting here, but I don't trust any of this.
Yeah. and-
But listen,
Opportunity was not, but offering the presentation to the community is what our intention was.
That was good if you did that, that's your job. But I don't like this concept at all. I'm speaking for myself and perhaps my community. 9 times out of 10, because we voted down the next project we had before. You're not gonna be waiting, no, you're not. Dump trucks are not gonna be coming in your community.
What's your restrictive act?
Excuse me, doesn't the upwards, construction,
It doesn't affect us.
That's another question behind.
I get your concern, but I see starting change.
You see,
That's
sorry.
why there's farms to feed people.
Well, guess what? I'm a city councilor, lady, 31 years, I see children going through their trash cans.
Yeah, and that's
I
probably
don't
because
see
it's not,
starving kids, I see their food desert.
yeah.
If you wanna help somebody, help sell these houses to the community, and some form of College Street, places like that, where they improve upon. But I don't see starving children, I don't.
Okay, yeah, I'm just saying,
I've
that's why we're,
years, I don't see them starving.
that's why we're following.
Man, this lady right here,
Just a couple of questions, because I really am, I'm just a little confused on a couple of things. Now, I'm convinced, I will say that, and I'm gonna say this because of this. I participate in the city's works programs, and I get a food box every Thursday delivered to my door, busing $5. And the produce that's in it is all organic. And I look at today, I was just thinking today, when I made my salad and I cut up my strawberries, and I was like, oh, I would have paid $4 for this plain strawberries alone. But anyway, to say this, but what I'm confused about is, we're only here right now for you to say, well, you have a proposal and the recommendation. When you said you wanted to have that, is in the recommendation. I thought I heard June 2023.
June of 2023.
Or 2023.
Yes,
So we
for a recommendation.
for a recommendation.
Correct. That is not the disposition. of-
And then what happens next? The community, we would come back for a full presentation where we would see what the renderings of the homes look like. You would have already, I would imagine, tested the soil, know that this is going to work. How long is this program for? How many years is expected? If we find something's not working, you know, do you have the ability to pull out and then you just left with an eyesore? So I think there's probably a lot more we need to know before. I don't want to close my self off to it, because I think the presentation needs to be a little more robust. And we need to see more and be convinced that one, the floodplains, what type of animals, what the structures look like for that. You know, because I know in the city, I for instance live right up here on Frederick Road, and so you know, we get eggs from them. So I guess I just want to, I think the presentation needs to be more robust. When would we see that?
You will
And get to see and.
Well, I'm really apologetic that the IT system did not work this evening because we did have some of the visuals for you to see. the email address that Robin has collected from everybody will get a copy of their presentation. But I do agree that the questions that you've asked about getting more detail, also pulling in details about what studies are doing around the floodplain, need to be put in before the community can give an intelligent recommendation or feedback. So that is information that we can provide additionally. And that date is not set in stone. It is the timeline that we'd like to be able to have a recommendation to give to the Commissioner of Housing.
So, but Mr. Martinez, what's your vision for to be up and going? 2 years from now, a year from now, what's your vision?
So we have enough equipment to get produce into production almost immediately. So as soon as they say that you can start growing, we can grow open air produce almost immediately as well as flowers. So that we do a lot of pollinator habitats on our farm. We actually harvest honey and bees on our farm. So we're very big into flower production. For those of you who don't know, Maryland only can produce pollen May through June. So it's really not that long for the bees. That's why you never see bees anymore unless they're like dying. And that's why there's not a lot of honey production within Maryland. So we produce a lot of flowers. We can get that into production right away. We have all the assets of the Waldorf farm that we're capable of bringing up here. It's the like the tunnels and the, like all of that requires community input. We're not just gonna like.
Long structures, aren't they?
They're not as long as
They
you.
look like greenhouses.
Yeah, they look just like greenhouses. You can see through the plastic. The average size is like 25 to by like 80, but they're so customizable because it's just tubing. So we would have to see what works best with it. I had to see how that land reacts to the regenerative agriculture because sometimes trees start growing and I don't kill trees. So
And we're not at that point either.
Yeah.
You haven't been able to do that yet because you haven't been able to.
yeah, I'm not gonna invest into something I can't.
My house is used as a cutlery from Rockland over to Frederick or Wickham sometimes. I had to replace my fence 3 times. And 3 times after replacing the fence, I don't know if it was a nurse that had a nursery before, he would come in the fence and ask to take the fence apart. He climbed, do the walk, I don't know why, but it is a cutlery. So what to prevent people cutting through my yard to come to your farm or whatever? And you know, what happens? What kind of fencing do you use anything?
So we do use fencing. That's something that we have to kind of address when we like start
Hey,
growing.
stop by my house. My house is right there.
Yeah. Well,
I didn't knock on my door. You can ring your doorbell.
Yeah.
You're welcome to. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm right there. I'm not.
Yeah, I'm a farmer, so I'm in the field almost every day. I'm not gonna knock on your door at 9 p.m. Yeah, so one thing that we thought about with the urban farm, one thing that we deal with is like trespassing and like a legit robbery to steal equipment and stuff like that. We work with you. We're not gonna like put up a barricade so that they can only get through one area and then this road is.
Frederick Avenue, Dangerous Avenue too. I mean, there's been a lot, especially at Rockland. There's been accidents there. I mean, anybody that's been around anytime. So I mean, I don't know what access you would use from Frederick Avenue or Wickham. I mean.
Yeah, we would work with the city and study and stuff like that, but we're, like I said, we're here just to regenerate the land and grow farmers. We're not, like, we submitted this proposal because of what we saw, what it did to our community and the Waldorf community. Like, residential down there.
And it's affordable housing. Affordable housing combined will get all the trash. Because it will come through my yard to get to Rockland, go up to the school, the nursing home, that's what's happening. Day by day, they just tear my fence down. So it's just. I don't want.
Unfortunately, I can't help you with your trespassing issues, but I can only say what would happen on a farm. I'm just a farmer, okay? I grow food and I help the community.
It doesn't want to farm.
Yeah.
I didn't build my house. Yeah. So I'm totally 128% against it.
Okay.
And affordable housing. I didn't build there, have affordable housing around me because it will develop. I know what happens. It will develop trash. You know, the trash thing, gotta come and pick up the trash. I'll be waking up 3 o'clock in the morning.
Our farm produces almost zero waste. So the trash would not be coming from our farm.
What's your hours of operation?
Our hours of operation, we're regenerative farmers, so we wake up at 7 and stop working at 5. We are not corn farmers that wake up at 3 AM or dairy farmers that wake up at 3 AM and plant and seed and use tractors really loud. Our community loves us for a reason, and that is because they thought all these things too, but we're not that type of farmer. We are here to make the land as productive as possible with the least amount of input, and that's why all the farmers are retiring because it's so expensive, it's such hard work. So this regenerative movement is taking track with a lot of young farmers because it's not as hard. It's not as impactful.
I looked at the neighbors and I'd say anything about how, that was our biggest complaint last time we were in church and how.
Yeah.
That was our biggest problem.
Yeah.
So they had.
And there's it's up to the city. There's a way to like separate the farming proposal from the housing proposal. But yeah, this is just what we have for your community. Like we have the ability to mitigate the flooding. We have the ability to produce food within your community that you can get. That's actually nutritious. It's not like KFC and fast food and all that stuff. It's legitimate growing. It inspires those who are not in this room, these kids, right? These kids are from my farm. That's what we do, so.
Excuse me, maybe I'm missing something. You say benefiting our communities, you're also benefiting yourselves. You're also in our community.
Ready?
Yes, because they did a request for proposal for businesses.
I need you to speak out loud.
Yes, yes.
You're benefiting more so yourselves, and the city will be benefiting versus that of our communities.
Right. Yeah.
I am not that selfish of a person that I would. Would have to be answered by them. We would just take on the land to do a farm. I can farm
You're
and,
benefiting
yeah.
more than the both of you.
Okay,
I think we can agree.
okay. I invite you guys to come visit my farm. You guys can come to my farm. Come visit my farm. Come visit.
Because I'm gonna sit a lot for it.
Yeah.
See what, how I do this, the year that I read. And I've been there since 1944. I've seen them tear up the street once in the 60s. There's permits on the street. So much housing around Wickham. But if the vacant houses, we can't tree farm.
And that's possible as well.
Don't need houses. The city has developed uplands, and now we're in phase 2. They put a cross Uplands Parkway, they're coming over towards 10 Hills, but the city owns a lot of that property in 10 Hills.
Yeah.
They're building anything over here, affordable, mixed house. Why do we need additional?
Yeah, I'm just the farming component. I can't answer on the farming. That is just our proposal.
But they're not.
So if I may, we do have to come to a conclusion. I do hear all the good comments, questions and feedback has been really helpful. We have one question online, and if we have another question from the audience, I'd like to do that so that we can wrap up, and then I will make certain everyone gets a copy of tonight's presentation, the online survey as well, so that we can hear in writing from the community and give that detail to the evaluation committee. So I just want to take this question online and then thank our guests for being.
There was one more question about how much experience do you have with ruminants and fowls?
We're ruminants and fowls. So
What the-
ruminants are,
The question.
how much experience do I have with ruminants and fowl? So fowl are chickens and birds and ducks and stuff like that. Ruminants are the big animals that ruminate, which is they eat their food and then it sits in a stomach and comes back up and goes back in. Those are cows, right? Cows, emus, sometimes horses are considered them as well. I've grown up, I was a field worker growing up. So my dad was a Mexican immigrant. I worked in a field my whole life until I went to the Naval Academy. I have a significant amount of experience with growing plants because of the field working. the cows and the horses and all that stuff. I learned through the regenerative agriculture movement. I also used to train wild horses when I was stationed in California. So I have a significant amount of experience with large animals and training them to be nice and get production out of them. The fowls and stuff, we have experience just through our own farm. We are actually not really big fans of the chickens, one, because they smell, and two, they die very easily from foxes. So we are not huge fans of chickens, and Maryland has enough chicken farmers on the Eastern Shore that Maryland will never be short of chicken or eggs. So I know it seemed crazy because of the price of eggs right now, but Maryland has more chicken farms than you could ever believe. And they smell, right? Cows, you would think cows smell, but with our use of wood chips and other regenerative agriculture, ideals for the soil, it doesn't smell.
Okay.
So
We do have a raised hand, Ms. Evans, go right
Hi,
ahead.
hi, I'm sorry. I guess my question wasn't clear. So when I say ruminants, I'm thinking small ruminants, the goats, the sheep. That's what I wanted to know, what kind of experience you had with them, not cows and horses, which you're not going to be able to bring into the city.
Yeah. So with goats, we have a significant amount of experience. They were our first ever animal that we went into production with. They are used and utilized on the regenerative agriculture model because they eat everything. Their poop is called a cold fertilizer, so it doesn't smell. It can go direct onto plants without you having to sterilize or cool off. We use goats to clear land, and we do like the goat yoga and all that stuff. But they're kind of like our main animal for making sure land can then get used into production. Because there's a lot of significant amount of like invasives all over.
Okay, so I heard you talk about the field trips the kids were taking out to either your Waldorf or your Edgewater locations. So are you doing agritourism, or are you going to be doing production? I heard you talk flowers. I'm trying to understand produce, what kind of produce you might be focusing on.
Yeah. So agritourism is anything that allows the public onto a farm within Maryland stipulation. So yes, it's considered agritourism because we do education in anything that allows anybody other than the farmer on the property. And we would have to within the city, because it wouldn't be fair to get it from the city and then close the gates. But our production is called the biodynamic model, where we try to mimic nature and have a diversified income with a large focus on organic produce. And the produce that we focus on is culturally appropriate for the Latino and African communities. So we grow a lot of spices and peppers, but a lot of leafy greens, a lot of the more hardier like vegetables like lettuce and stuff like that. We do try to grow a lot of root vegetables like carrots, potatoes, radishes and stuff like that, but in turnips, yeah. So we grow a lot of turnips. Those are easier for us, but they do require a significant amount more impact on the land. So we tend to stay away from those unless they're higher up. So the way you grow a potato and stuff, you have the hill, which means you rebury them. In a production model, you have to use a tractor to do that. We don't like doing that, so we try to like stay away. And also potatoes are easy to get from anywhere because of Idaho, so they ship them in here. So we really focus on the leafy vegetables, the obscure root vegetables, and then culturally appropriate spices. On this farm, we would only have 2 full-time. Yeah, there would be some seasonal, but usually they get filled by children. Like
Aspect of the proposal.
yes, we do allow volunteers on our farm in Edgewater and in Waldorf. We would allow them here too, but they would have to go through a training program so that they can remain safe. And most importantly, keep the food safe. Like if we produce food, we can't let them like sneeze or like, walk through a goat pen and then walk into the produce. So all volunteers have to go through a significant amount of food safety training. So the kind of like weeds out some of the kids that aren't really as dedicated because of the training program. On our farm alone, we have in excess of 300 that I can just call like that, and they will show up. We actually have an issue with that, so we like had to get a volunteer coordinator because we have too many people that want to come to our farm and work. This barn that we're building in Edgewater, it's 5,000 square feet, like I said. It is 100% built by volunteers. Kids the average age of 15, all from the city of Annapolis, DC. They're just showing up and I teach them how to build and they help me build. So the volunteer aspect is more than half of our impact.
Well, what about the irrigation? Well, I might be saying the wrong word. For watering, what type of watering system do you use? What if, we're in a drought season, because sometimes the city gets, and we can't, and we have a ban on.
Yeah, so,
And that happens.
yeah, so,
What's the remedy for that?
so for us, if there was a drought that was on the horizon, we would choose drought hardy propagation, like kale and all that. That doesn't take a significant amount of water. On our other properties, they're both on well, so we have a significant amount of water that we cannot just go crazy and just leave the spigot on, or we'll go dry and can't drink anything. So into regenerative agriculture, so the layer of wood chips and compost can retain water for in excess of months. Like right now, we just got a rain, but we've gone through like a month-long drought in Edgewater. And you can kick the wood chips on my property and they're soaking wet because they retain that much water. So that's, that's one big plus about the wood chips. Like I said, they soak it up, but they also like mitigate me like turning on the hose every day. So it's a significant amount of trying to lower that impact. Like farming is hard already, and like the harvesting and the planting, that is tough. The least amount of work that I can do, the better. And
So is this a 12-month, would you be working farm 12 months out of the year or just on a certain?
no, so generally,
Or that's 9 months?
yeah, so generally like the full production starts right around like a few weeks ago where we would go into the fields and stuff. Farmers are limited by frost. So if it ever were to frost, which is something that we deal with more on the property like this because it's got a hill, right? So things up on the hill will have a frost sooner than the things in the bottom of the hill, or vice versa, depending on the weather. We can't work through the winter if there's ever frost that would go in the tunnel unless we implement heating. But we don't do that because one, it costs money, and two, it's like an extremely loud system. We don't like loud things. So yeah, we're limited by frost. So like the last frost of the year is generally April, May. That's when we can start putting things out into the field. The first frost of the year nowadays with climate change, it's like October sometimes. Sometimes it's November and December. It all depends on that year. But as soon as the frost hits, that's when you'll see us kind of like start slowing down. And it slows down significantly because we can only either be in the high tunnel or just kind of call it.
Why don't you talk about, and building the next generation, because that's what I'm hearing. I'm
Yeah,
hearing a great opportunity. I love this project because it gives exposure, to inner city kids that never had that kind of exposure before. So why don't you explain a little bit about what is going on with your farm that could be applicable to this farm?
Thank you. And that is going to be how if we can wrap this up, and I will follow up with the emails that we have. So.
And I guess it's any words, any of them, in the middle of a residential area.
yes.
So if you could incorporate that into the.
Okay.
Then
So-
we're gonna.
So because we are deemed an urban farm in the middle of a residential area, we have a neighborhood behind us, 200 home, right? Rivers Club. It's like,
It's like regular neighborhood.
yeah,
all around.
it's a neighborhood on every side of us. Because we're kind of like located in an area that is accessible. We're right on the road called 214. It's a major highway. Kids have the ability to come see us. So most farmers are inaccessible in Maryland because they're past the rural lines. They're in what's called the Ag Reserve in Montgomery County. They're past the moratorium. So if you really want to not be around buildings, go to where the farmers are because they put moratoriums on building. We are within that area, so we are deemed an urban area. We are accessible through every school system within Anne Arundel County because the buses can get to us. We do a lot of, like Rod was saying, because of our accessibility, school systems started reaching out. Baltimore City obviously reached out. Baltimore County, we've done a lot of stuff in the outskirts of Baltimore County. just because we're so accessible. We originally weren't gonna do any of this. We were just gonna be a homestead, but the demand from kids is really what made us open up. So children started, like these kids right here, they came to the farm first for like a petting zoo or like, hey, let's grow or make our own salad, like that type of education system. Then they're like, I really like this. I want to do this for the summer. So we created a kind of like a mock internship program, and now it's turning into actual programming. Where we say, okay, ages 5 through 6, there's a summer camp that you can do. Ages 6 to 10, there's this like kind of beginning farmer and like grow your own garden type of program. And then everything older than that, that's actually the beginning farmer program, where we're gonna start training kids to actually become farmers and acquire land and change their entire family dynamic through land ownership and farming. That's our ultimate goal, to inspire the next generation of farmers. I know it's not easy to see in this room, but whenever we go to farming events, farming things all over the state, we are the youngest and only ones that are under the age of 70. Which is scary because they produce, agriculture is the #1 industry in Maryland. It is dying and their kids are not taking it over. I see the kids that are desiring to come to my farm, those that are living in the city, those in DC, on the outskirts of DC, they can be the ones that solve the issue. So like, I know we've kind of gone through the impact of your community. Kids of your community are gonna be the ones that are really gonna take on to this.
So I just want to, I'm so sorry to do that, but I think we have to conclude tonight. We have had an opportunity to do questions. We will continue to have questions. The city has to follow up with you based on the recommendation and ask that you had specifically, and we want to get that to you. And we will modify the timeline if necessary, but I do want to thank Mr. Martinez and his team, Wild Kid Acre LLC, for coming out and share this presentation. And I really do want to thank you all for sharing honest feedback and constructive feedback to help us through this process. So again, thank you so much. If you'd like to ask some questions, maybe there will be some opportunity following this. I appreciate your attendance.
One last question. Did you say the survey is online now and we have 10 days to get it complete?
The survey is online now, and it will be online for 2 weeks. However, based on your specific request about the details to see the drawings, we will make certain that you get that, the PowerPoint that was shared, along with any details that we can provide to everyone, as well as other email addresses, so that no one is not included in the information, and try to touch all of the neighborhoods, because it is not just one neighborhood that's impacted, there are multiple. So we will try to get that to you, and that date will probably be modified, but right now it's going to be online until May, I think that's 11, so it will be online until.
How many, they said, it was to us, this gentleman over here said he had got in touch with everybody, but they didn't come from the neighborhood, but that was obviously not true. So you're saying if you will get in touch with us, how are we supposed to get this information? As Tom was saying, he's a community person, he got it from me, because I took it to him. So you use this as an opportunity, so you know what would come.
This recording.
Get this information to these people that are here, that when the first place is saying that you can notify them and you can. So this is going to be the same thing with August. That, so that they wouldn't be. And I'm saying that